You know how it is, right? You want to get a handle on the really important stuff, but honestly, sorting through all the information, it can feel like a whole other job.
Totally.
So today, we're really zeroing in on something crucial, the state of our oceans. And we've got some pretty incredible footage to anchor our discussion. It's from a brand new documentary.
Exactly. It's called Ocean with David Attenborough, and they've actually managed to film something that's, well, it's mostly been hidden from view. The direct impact of bottom trawling.
Great.
Right on the ocean floor.
Wow.
And as we kind of dive into it, you'll see,
Oh, yeah.
what this footage shows is incredibly important.
Okay, so our mission today, it's pretty straightforward. We want to really understand what this, unprecedented footage tells us about bottom trawling. What are the consequences for the whole ocean environment? We'll be looking right at the documentary, but also pulling in some related info to give you the bigger picture. And it kicks off with this really powerful description. Listen to this. As a cloud of destruction approaches, all the creatures in its path scramble desperately to get out of the way, fleeing for their lives. However fast they go, they can't outpace it. It looms closer and closer until it swallows them up.
Wow. That paints a picture.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's describing bottom trawling.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack that. What exactly are we picturing there?
Right. So what's being described there is this fishing method, bottom trawling. Basically, you have these large ships, and they're dragging these really heavy nets,
Yeah.
often with heavy irony gear attached, right across the seabed.
Okay.
And, well, the aim might be specific fish, like cod or haddock, things we eat. But the nets themselves, they're completely indiscriminate. They just scoop up pretty much everything that's down there on the ocean floor.
And it's not just what they catch, right? It's how much just gets thrown away. David Attenborough points this out, how incredibly wasteful it is. He says over 3/4 of what a trawler hauls up might just be chucked back.
Yeah, 3/4.
Right.
It's an astonishing amount of, well, unnecessary death, really.
Unbelievable.
It is. And the documentary's co-director, Keith Scully, he actually said that the sheer number of animals killed for no reason by trawling was, and I quote, the thing we found most distressing.
That hits hard.
It does. And it really highlights why getting this footage, actually showing it, was so vital for the filmmakers, to demonstrate the scale of this waste.
It sounds like filming this wasn't easy, though. What was the challenge?
Well, getting clear, direct footage of bottom trawling actually happening. It's been surprisingly hard to come by. So the filmmakers took a very direct approach.
How so?
They actually got permission to mount cameras directly onto the nets of a working commercial trawler. And they also filmed scallop dredging, working with scientists from the Marine Biological Association who are already studying its effects.
Oh, okay. Collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. It let them capture the reality of these methods, as they unfold. Scully even said that making this footage available so maybe scientists don't have to film it again themselves. He felt that was one of the most important things he's done in his career.
That really says something about the significance then.
Absolutely.
And the reactions to seeing this footage, they've been pretty intense. I heard Enric Sala, a National Geographic explorer who co-produced the doc, had a really strong reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Sala said point blank he was outraged by what he saw. The footage, it didn't just show the immediate chaos, creatures trying to escape this huge net coming at them.
Right.
But also these really disturbing close-ups of them still, like wriggling after being caught and just dunked back overboard. His hope is that this really brings home the impact of industrial fishing to everyone.
Gosh, it's hard to even imagine seeing that up close. And I heard there were some details even more graphic that didn't even make the final cut.
That's right. Scully mentioned some particularly brutal scenes, like spider crabs literally being crunched up by the, quote, teeth of a scallop dredge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The filmmakers just decided some of it was, well, frankly, too intense for a general audience.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. It paints such a stark picture of the physical destruction. But then you mentioned they found an area that hadn't been trawled. That must have been a powerful comparison.
Exactly. It was crucial. While they were scouting, just dropping cameras down, they found this patch of seabed. It seemed like trawlers had avoided it, maybe because the bottom was rough or uneven.
And what did they see there?
A completely different world. Compared to the surrounding areas that had clearly been trawled over and over, this untouched spot was like a carpet of pink sea fans.
Pink sea fans? What are those?
They're these beautiful, delicate corals. And the key thing is, they grow incredibly slowly, like maybe 1 centimeter a year. Just one.
1 centimeter. So that means...
It means that habitat, that carpet, would take decades, maybe longer, to recover if a dredge went through it just once. So when you see trawling destroy an area like that, you're talking about damage that could last longer than our lifetimes.
So it's not just the fish caught right then, it's wiping out the whole structure, the whole ecosystem on the seabed. Max Valentine from Oceana, he had an analogy for this,
He
right?
did, and it's a powerful one. He compared trawling to using a lawnmower to chop down everything in sight.
Ooh.
And he said it basically bulldozes the homes of other marine life.
Oh, wow.
It's a really fitting way to describe that kind of indiscriminate destruction.
And a scale of this, it's almost too big to comprehend, isn't it?
It really is.
Mm.
The documentary states that every single year, bottom trawling destroys an area of the ocean floor nearly as large as the Amazon rainforest.
The entire Amazon rainforest, every year.
Nearly that size, yeah. These vessels are just constantly plowing the seabed. There's very little chance for it to really recover in many places.
And this destruction, it goes beyond just the immediate ecological damage, doesn't it? There's a climate change connection, too.
That's absolutely right. It's something people don't often think about. But studies estimate that bottom trawling stirs up the seabed so much that it releases huge amounts of stored carbon dioxide back into the water and eventually the atmosphere.
How much are we talking?
The estimate is around 370 million metric tons of CO2 annually, just from bottom trawling.
Wow. To put that in perspective.
That's roughly similar to the annual emissions of a large industrialized nation. So yeah, it's a significant and often overlooked contributor to global warming.
That is genuinely staggering. Okay, so amidst all this, pretty bleak information, is there any hope? Can these areas recover?
Well, yes, there is some reason for hope. It
Right.
depends on what we're talking about, though. Those deep-sea corals, the sea fan sponges, they take centuries, literally centuries to recover because they grow so slowly.
Right, decades, centuries.
But many fish populations, they're actually more resilient. If you stop trawling in a particular area, many fish stocks can start to bounce back surprisingly quickly, sometimes in under 5 years.
Okay, so that's something. Removing the pressure allows for recovery, at least for some species.
Exactly. It shows the potential for relatively rapid regeneration if we give the ocean a chance.
It's just mind-boggling to think about the sheer volume of life affected. The documentary shared some stats on this, right? About how much bottom trawling contributes to the global catch.
It did. Bottom trawling lands something like 19 million tons of fish and invertebrates every year. That's almost a quarter. Nearly 25% of all the wild marine fish caught worldwide.
A quarter from this one method.
Yeah. And think about this, too. Scientists reckon the total weight, the biomass, of large predatory fish in the ocean today. It's only about 10% of what it was before industrial fishing really took off.
Only 10% left? That's sobering.
Very. It really shows the cumulative impact.
And here's something I found really surprising, almost paradoxical. You hear about marine protected areas, MPAs, right, places set aside for conservation.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom trawling, it's actually allowed in a lot of them. How does that work? That seems totally counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive, and it's a really crucial point. Shockingly, yes, bottom trawling and dredging are legal, they're permitted, in the majority of areas designated as MPAs globally.
But why, if they're protected?
Well, protected can mean different things. MPAs have different levels of protection. Some are strict no-take zones where no fishing is allowed at all, but many others allow certain types of fishing, sometimes including bottom trawling.
So it's like loopholes or compromises.
Often it's compromises made during the designating process, balancing conservation goals with existing fishing interests or economic pressures. But it definitely raises serious questions, like you said. How effective is an MPA if one of the most damaging practices is still allowed inside its borders?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, if that's the problem, what are the solutions people are putting forward? How can we lessen this impact?
Well, the main solution being pushed is pretty clear. Create more marine protected areas where all industrial fishing, definitely including bottom trawling, is completely banned. True sanctuaries.
Right, fully protected zones.
Exactly. And the idea is these areas don't just protect what's inside them. They can act as nurseries, like breeding grounds, allowing marine life to recover, grow larger, produce more offspring.
And that helps outside the protected area, too.
That's the hope, yeah. It's called the spillover effect. More fish, bigger fish, more eggs and larvae inside the protected zone can drift out or swim out, replenishing the stocks in nearby areas where fishing is allowed. So in the long run, it could actually benefit small-scale fishers working near these protected areas.
That's interesting. Enric Saul, you mentioned him earlier. He made a point about conservationists and fishers maybe having a shared goal here.
He did. He argues that the worst enemy of fishing is overfishing, not protected areas. His point is that ultimately both sustainable fishers and conservationists want the same thing: healthy oceans teeming with fish. And properly managed, fully protected areas are a key tool to achieve that.
Makes sense. And the scale of protection being called for, it's pretty ambitious, isn't it?
It is. Experts like Salah are saying we need to fully protect 30% of the world's oceans. 30% to really give ecosystems a chance to rebound properly.
And where are we now?
Currently, only about 3%, maybe a bit more now, but around that figure is under that strict full protection. So, yeah, there's a huge gap between the recommendation and the reality.
A 3 to 30% gap?
Yeah.
Wow. What would that cost?
Interestingly, the estimated cost to actually manage and enforce that 30% protection worldwide, it's maybe around $20 billion a year, which sounds like a lot, but it's roughly the same amount that governments currently give out in subsidies to the fishing industry each year.
Whoa. So the money is potentially there, it's just allocated differently.
Exactly. It certainly makes you think about priorities.
It really does. The documentary also brought up a historical example, right? Something hopeful, showing that big policy changes can work for ocean life.
Yes, Keith Scully highlighted the ban on commercial whaling by the International Whaling Commission back in the 1980s.
Ah, right. I remember that.
He described it as a relatively simple, clear policy decision. And the result? Commercial whaling largely stopped. And since then, several whale species that were on the brink have shown really remarkable signs of recovery.
So it is possible to turn things around.
Absolutely. He said seeing that level of recovery in his own lifetime was extraordinary. It's a powerful precedent for what we could potentially achieve with other ocean conservation measures.
And looking ahead, is there a specific moment coming up where governments might actually address bottom trawling more directly?
Yes, there is. The filmmakers and many experts are looking toward the United Nations Ocean Conference in June. They see it as a really critical opportunity for governments to finally commit to stronger, more effective action against bottom trawling.
So a potential turning point.
Potentially. Max Valentine really stressed the urgency, saying governments need not just to make policies to stop it, but crucially, to make sure any bans they do put in place are actually enforced properly.
Enforcement is key. Got it. Enric Sala had a final thought you mentioned, one that was ultimately optimistic.
He did, yeah. Despite everything he said, what we're doing to the ocean is horrible, but we can bring it back.
Okay.
He went on, when we protect places, marine life comes back spectacularly. It turns deserts into beautiful jungles and forests and underwater forests. It's this really vivid image of the ocean's resilience, if we just give it the space it needs.
That's a powerful note to end on. For anyone listening who wants to see this footage themselves, the documentary is Ocean with David Attenborough. It premieres on National Geographic June 7th, and then it streams globally the next day, June 8th, which is World Oceans Day, on Disney Plus and Hulu. And apparently, it's already playing in some other countries, too.
Yeah, it really offers such a stark and I think necessary look at this practice. The visual evidence they captured.
Yeah.
It's just a powerful way to understand the real impact on the seabed and all the life down there.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaway here is really that groundbreaking footage in Ocean with David Attenborough. It just lays bare the devastating effects of bottom trawling, on the ocean floor itself and all the creatures living there.
Right. But also, crucially, as the experts in the film really emphasize, despite how bad it looks, there's real potential for recovery. Significant potential if we actually take meaningful action.
This deep dive, it really shows the scale of the problem, but also points to solutions, right? Like those fully protected marine areas and real policy changes.
Definitely. The paths forward are there.
Which brings us to our final thought, something for you to mull over. When you consider the scale of destruction that the documentary reveals, but also that real hope for recovery, what role do you think our own awareness plays versus actual policy changes in protecting the oceans? And maybe what does it mean? What are the implications now that we know these incredibly destructive practices are actually legal happening right now inside many of those areas we call protected?
Yeah.
Definitely some.